Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Jari. So, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from 4th Canto, Chapter 7, verse 57 and 58. I'll read the Sanskrit for verse 57 and the translation, all that, and then we'll go to the next one. Tasmapi anubhavena svenaiva vapnaradase dharma eva matim datva tidashaste divam yayu. So go word for word. Tasmai, unto him, Daksha. Api, even. Anubhavena, by worshipping the Supreme Lord. Svena, by his own. Eva, certainly. Avapta radase, having attained perfection. Dharme, in religion. Eva, certainly. Matim, intelligence. Datva, having given. Tridasha, demigods. Te, those. Divam, to the heavenly planets. Yayu, went. I hope you can hear me. I didn't even check if my volume was okay.
Pretty good, Mati. Very, very clear. Your
Great.
video and audio both pretty good. Thank you.
Translation by Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu by the ritualistic performance of sacrifice, Daksha was completely situated on the religious path. Moreover, all the demigods who had assembled at the sacrifice blessed him that he might increase his piety. And then they left. Purport. Although Daksha was considerably advanced in religious principles, he awaited the blessings of the demigods. Thus the great sacrifice conducted by Daksha ended in harmony and peace. And then the next verse, 4:758. Evam Dakshaya nihitva sati purva kalevaram yagya vatakshetre menayam itu shushruma. The translation, Maitreya said, I have heard that after giving up the body she had received from Daksha, Dakshayani, his daughter, took her birth in the kingdom of the Himalayas. She was born as the daughter of Mena. I heard this from authoritative sources. Purport. Mena is also known as Menaka and is the wife of the king of the Himalayas. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll go back to the first verse. So we've got two verses here, quite different. I'm going to focus more on the first one, since the second one is talking about when Sati took on her next body, and the verse after that, which will come tomorrow, is focusing on her. And so I'll leave that to, I think it's Manjaranya that's giving class tomorrow. And I'll focus more on the verse talking about what happened, how the conclusion of the sacrifice, the yagya by Daksha. So first of all, for myself, I find that when preparing class or when reading with another person, I find it very interesting to get into the psychology of the different persons. We're talking about the personalities in Bhagavatam and what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and in that way we can try to understand and extract lessons for ourselves and how to make it relevant for us, because they're real persons that are also experiencing different situations that we can identify with. So, for example, in this whole pastime of Daksha and Lord Shiva, it seems like there's some transformation happening internally for Daksha. He was in a position of pride. That's how it started off, and as we know, this happens a lot in Bhagavatam. When a person becomes proud, usually that's right before the fall, and where their consciousness has to be corrected and transformed into what is natural, that we should be prideless, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And why is pride artificial? Because what are we proud of? Is it anything that's actually ours? Usually we're proud of some opulence that we might have, of the 6 opulences, fame, beauty, and strength, or wealth, even renunciation, knowledge. So those things aren't actually ours. They're given to us by Krishna for this lifetime or part of a lifetime. And it's interesting because as soon as someone becomes proud of this that's not actually theirs, they become unattractive. And that's why we see that one of Krishna's qualities is that he's shy. He's not like, hello, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like worship me. He's not like, that's not his mood. And even I was reading recently an account with a Prabhupada disciple and her interaction with Srila Prabhupada. And at one point I think he was describing pure devotees. And so she says to him, so that means you, or something like that. And Prabhupada's like, me? And his eyes went big and he's like, no, I'm just a conditioned soul. And that is so endearing, that he didn't, because he was in his, he wasn't actually a conditioned soul, but he's actually setting the example for us that our natural state is that we're so tiny, and Krishna is, infinite. We're finite, and whatever we have, it's Krishna's. The only thing that we own is our desires. Everything else is Krishna's. So we see in the beginning of this pastime when Daksha, he was disrespectful to Lord Shiva because he was part of his position. And in the verse that Radha Padma gave class yesterday on, it says, with all respect, Daksha worshiped Lord Shiva. So we see the transformation. Now he's become respectful to Lord Shiva. And this point of being disrespectful to a Vaishnava is the most dangerous thing in bhakti. I heard a class from Mother Urmila explaining that, all the other paths have their pitfalls, have their dangers. Like, if you're focusing on Ashtanga yoga, you might become proud of your siddhis, your perfections, and start thinking that you are the supreme controller. So that's like a deviation. And for Jnana yoga as well, you can think that you are everything. For bhakti, the danger is Vaishnava aparad. So that's something that we we don't take lightly in our spiritual path. Isn't it like an elephant trampling over a beautiful garden of our bhakti creeper? So I was trying to contemplate or reflect on how this works, and it's usually either I think I'm here talking to someone that's down here, so talking down to them because I think I'm better than them for whatever reason, and that is offensive, and because we're proud. Or it can be offensive when I think I'm down here and someone's up there. We consider them up there and we try to pull them down with some offense. So yeah, basically the psychology of someone that has that attitude of wanting to offend is very poisonous. And it's due to our spiritual vision being blocked because we're not seeing the other Vaishnava as our brother or our sister. You know, we have the common source, father, mother, Radha Krishna, and we're all brothers and sisters. We're equal, regardless of our material positions. We're actually equal spiritually. Like we see in Bhagavad Gita, you know, Krishna saying, Pandita Samadarshana, we should see everyone equal, especially someone that's practicing bhakti is very dear to Krishna. So if we don't see them, you know, in that light, obviously it's not pleasing to Krishna. And that's why when that happens, that's when we get something happens to us and we get that mentality corrected, hopefully. If we're if we become humbled enough, we'll usually get that mentality corrected. Like for Daksha, he actually got a goat head. So how can you be proud afterwards when your head is the head of a goat? You know, you can't be proud anymore. You know, so he was humbled. It's kind of humorous as well. In what way? Krishna definitely has a sense of humor. And I was considering, I was reflecting on how my dear friend Sumuki, when she talks with children, like even with my daughter, she's only 3, she treats her with such respect. Like she doesn't consider that because she's only 3 years old, she's less important. She actually, like, it's amazing, and it's so beautiful that, you know, we try to see each other as who we are, spirit souls, regardless of our material, where we're at materially, in terms of our age or whatever other position in the society of devotees. Yeah, and I was also thinking of how I read recently that this one devotee in Bombay, a Prabhupada disciple, she was teaching some street kids a bit of, she was schooling them a little bit, and Prabhupada found out about it, and he asked to see them, and so they all went into his office in Bombay, and she was just thinking, you know, he's meeting all these important people in Bombay, millionaires or whatever, and he's giving his time equally to these children, you know, that are from this, you know, materially they don't seem so important, but Prabhupada wasn't seeing materially, he was seeing spiritually. And so for ourselves, for myself at least, it's the lesson is, or the thing to focus on is, am I striving to treat every devotee, every living entity, because we know that every living entity is in their, you know, spiritual position, they are a devotee, even if they have forgotten or whatever, every living entity with the respect that they deserve. And it's actually the key to our spiritual progress, to how we treat each other, because we don't practice bhakti in the Himalayas by ourselves. We practice amongst a society. So we're given opportunities daily to at every moment to see how we interact with others, and if we're treating them in the way that Krishna would like. And I was thinking, especially the people that we see most often, our families, because we live amongst devotees, we're sharing this life with jivas that have a certain role in the present. They can be like our child or or spouse or whatever. But it's just that role in this life. We need to like cultivate that, or I need to cultivate that proper mentality that they are eternally Krishna's devotees. They're not just my daughter or just my son or just my husband, but they're actually Krishna's devotees, and how I treat them should be how I treat all devotees, not just like we treat everyone Hare Krishna, and then in our home we're like, "Wah," or whatever. Yeah, so that's kind of for me in this pastime, that's what I take from the experience of Daksha. And on the other side, there's Lord Shiva, and he didn't even get offended. So there's a book called Unoffendable by a Christian author that Madhuryamrita recommended, and I read it some years ago. And it's all about, it's a choice to become unoffendable. And it's a really good choice. It saves a lot of trouble. And so we've got on one side to not offend, and on the other side to not get offended. And that is a good formula. And as you can see, I listen to Madhuryamrita's classes a lot because I remember all the points that she talks about doing that are related to this topic. And she says, it's like saying, someone says something to you that might be a bit offensive or hurtful or whatever, like something, and instead of focusing on that and getting all wound up with that, we think, oh, but I have an appointment with the queen, something much more important. And for us it would be, like, I'm trying to cultivate my relationship with Krishna. That's the essence of my life. And so this is just something small. I'm not going to give it so much attention. And it helps us to also to develop humility, to not get offended, like, because if we get offended, it's like we think that we're actually someone that is special, or I don't know, like, how can they, say that about me? And it would be fanning our false ego. So it's good for us to take the position of not getting offended. And Krishna knows what's happened, and he understands. There's an example also of a Catholic saint that my father really is really attracted to because of her amazing qualities in life. And she wrote several poems, and this was her mood as well, to not get offended by anything or anyone, because she was satisfied in her relationship with God, and that was the main thing. And whatever people say, Krishna knows the reality, if that's true or not. And we can pray for the person, to learn to get their mentality corrected, because offending is like I was saying, is poisonous. So to get that mentality corrected through joy instead of through pain. So that's what we can do. We can, pray for that person and say, oh, Krishna, please help them, learn this lesson in a joyful way and not have to suffer. And yeah, because that was Lord Shiva's example. He didn't curse Daksha back when he was, insulted. He actually just tolerated. But when his wife, Vaishnavi, she's a Vaishnavi, and that's one of her names, she took her life because of Daksha's insult, then is when Lord Shiva just took action and used his anger in the right way. And everything went down. So it was actually to correct his offensive mentality, to help Daksha. So it's being a well-wisher. And after that, Daksha became respectful after his pride was smashed. So back to the specifics of this verse, it's talking about how after Daksha, he he was reinstated in the religious path. It says the word is dharma, attained perfection in dharma. It says in the word for word. So he's back on track, and that pleases the demigods, and so then they blessed him. It's like a stamp of approval. Okay, you're doing well. And that is what allows there to be harmony and peace, which is what Prabhupada says in the purport. The blessings of devotees, of demigods, of superiors are so powerful. And I was thinking about this because I'm really trying to understand how it works. And I'd love to hear insights if anyone understands more than me, because they probably do. But it made me think of two things. One thing, when I was in Mayapur many years ago studying the Bhakti Shastri, and we were a group of women in a classroom, and we did an experiment. So the teacher asked one lady to go outside of the room, and then she told all of us to think negatively about that lady when she came back in, that devotee. And so then it was really hard because, we don't want to do that, but it was an experiment. So then she came back in, and I think the teacher was holding her arm, pushing her arm down. And she said to her to try to lift her arm up. I think it was something like that. And whilst we were all like putting our negative energy towards her, and she couldn't, she was just like really trying, and she couldn't, she had no strength. And then the teacher, had told us to do the opposite, to think all positive things about her, and then she like easily lifted her arm, and we're like, whoa. So even though we can't see the thoughts, and the we can't see those feelings, because they're subtle energy, they're real and they have power. Just because they're subtle doesn't mean that they don't exist. And so that was just one little experiment showing the power of positive and negative energy towards a person. Because we were, like 20 or something, it was a lot of us throwing that energy there. And so just imagine when people actually bless us, then that is empowering. And we can even see like a mundane example, if someone's trying to do something but they don't have much confidence, and then they hear people that they respect is encouraging them, like giving them encouraging words, they find the strength to do it, right? Like that's kind of also the role of a teacher in a classroom, to try to encourage the students to grow, to learn. And if it's the opposite, you put them down, then it's even harder for them to learn because they think they can't do it and they don't have confidence. So we can understand it like that as well. And then we can understand it. I have an example that I've just been reading in Bhagavatam. I'm finishing the pastime of Vamanadev and Bali Maharaj. And at the beginning of that pastime, we understand that Shukracharya and the Brahmanas had given their full blessings to Bali Maharaj. And that's why I think it's Lord Vishnu said to the demigods, he's invincible. The only way that he will be able to, be taken out of the heavenly planets that he's invaded is by Krishna himself, like no one else, because of the blessings, because of that strength, blessings of his spiritual master. So imagine for us, if we get the blessings of our spiritual master, it might mean that we can fight against Maya and go back to Godhead. It's actually really important. And how do we get the blessings? Usually is by trying to please them, which is by following their instructions, right? Yeah. For myself personally, I was recently, last year, I was engaging in a service that I thought was, pleasing to Krishna and to my spiritual master. And then after a few weeks ago, I heard a class from my Guru Maharaj, and he was saying that you can be doing the right thing at the wrong time in the wrong place. And then I thought, oh, well, if it's not pleasing to him, then why would I do it? Because the whole point is to try to please Krishna. So it was interesting for me to hear that as well. It's important to know that what we're engaging is actually pleasing. Like it's favorable. What's that verse, that the definition of pure devotional service from Madhuryamrita Sindhu? Anukulyena Krishna Nushilanam. So favorable, not like Kamsa, or like Baba Sandi was saying, like Pondraka, trying to be Krishna. Yeah, so basically we all want harmony. I'm guessing that's a natural desire of the soul, to want to be in a harmonious atmosphere, like in the spiritual world. Even if there's different camps of gopis or whatever, there's no malice. There's Bhakti Vinod Thakur has said that the only two rules in the spiritual world is love and no envy. So that is an atmosphere of harmony and peace. And I always think of that picture of Krishna feeding his friends, and he's in the center and all his friends are around him. So that's kind of how I see the society of devotees. We're all a loving family, and Krishna's in the center. And if there's any divisions because of material matters, that's below. Like, we're above that, because we're all relating to each other on a spiritual level, not on a material level. So in that way, there can be peace when Krishna's in the center. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop there and invite for any reflections or questions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for a nice class. Just a couple of comments. Yeah, it looks like Krishna doesn't like envy or pride, arrogance in his devotees. So he always teaches them a lesson. We can see that in the case of Lord Brahma, also Indra. So he just smashed them, and there's a transformation. In this case, there's such a big transformation. It didn't start well for Daksha. Got beheaded, and it got replaced by a goat head. But eventually, there was such a transformation. He did such a nice worship of Lord Shiva, and pleased all the demigods, and ended up quite well.
Yeah, and it even said in the verse from yesterday, was fully satisfied. So we see that, when we're in the right position internally and how we respect everyone, we feel satisfied.
Yeah, just amazing transformation. Another point about this negative and positive energies. There was an experiment done by a Japanese scientist, and he asked some students to boil some water, and while doing the process, he asked them to be very, very negatively, swear, loud music, and then there was another group. He asked them to boil water and play nice music or positive thoughts. And once these two types of water were there, he froze them, and he looked under the microscope of the crystals of ice that was there. And one there which had negative thought, the crystals were all disoriented, jumbled up. There's no harmony. There's no symmetry. But one that had a positive energy, and all very nice, harmonious, very uniform, harmonious crystal, very, very, very nice design. So he just said, just by thinking, we can affect the crystal or the symmetry of the water. So just imagine, like that you said, this amazing experiment. So while we are cooking, if you are thinking negatively, the offering won't come out well. And if you are listening to nice music and we are thinking very positively, the cooking, the offering will come very nice. So that's so it's been proved scientifically to how our thoughts affects the material nature.
Yeah, and we're made of mainly water, so we're affected. I was also just remembering that one devotee, her daughter, Madhupuri's daughter, she's a little baby. She's probably, I don't know, 8 months old or something, and she perceives the energy. When I'm upset and I'm around her, she starts crying. So it's like, you know, and she doesn't understand. She doesn't just understands the energy that she's feeling projected towards her. So she's very sensitive. So yeah, it's real. The energies are real, and we should be in control of our energy and how, you know, we interact with others, and yeah, and try to throw out good stuff, not bad stuff. Emanate nice things. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else got any comments, queries? Still, we got a few minutes. Okay, no one is coming up. So, I'd like to thank you, Mataji, for coming up this morning, giving your valuable time and association this morning. So thanks very much. We'd like to hear you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Likewise, Mataji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta ki Gaur Prabhupada ki Gaur, Vanchakar Padruvecha, Kipa Sindhuvecha,
Vaishnav Panamana Mahananda Koti Vaishnav Binda ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.